Good day, students. Here we are to discuss a very, very important chapter, a very important concept, that is constitutional governments. In this chapter, we'll endeavor to understand and know the meaning of constitution and to know the meaning of constitutionalism. We will also try to understand the features, the principles of a constitutional government, and the unfortunate causes which become hindrances in the way of a constitutional government. And we will understand this concept better by studying some constitutional governments in Asia, Latin America and Africa, the developing countries, the developing continents. Now, what is a constitution? It is a legal document. It is sacrosanct. It is holy. It is very important. It provides a legal framework to the government of the country, irrespective of which party comes to power. It ensures stability. It ensures continuity. It is the voice of the people. It is a guiding light to the government of the day whenever the government sits down to frame policies or to make laws. It imposes constraints and restraints on the government of the day. But the restraints and constraints are positive. They are reasonable. They can be explained to the people, to the government. It keeps a check on the government. It keeps a check on the policy makers. It is a holy book of the political system, of any political system. A constitution can be written, as in the case of India, and it can be unwritten, as we have read in other countries. UK, they say, some political thinkers say, have an unwritten constitution. Whatever, the constitution is a holy document which runs the political system. It ensures political stability and it controls the arbitrary actions of the government in power. It is a document which has the stamp of the legitimacy given to it by the people. India's preamble starts with, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic." We, the people, we are gifting it to ourselves. We have gifted the constitution to ourselves. It is the voice of the people. So the constitution is a guideline to the government that they have to perform, or they have to take decisions, or they have to go into the process of decision making with a certain goal in mind or with certain goals in mind. The government of the day acts according to the constitution, and this adhering to the constitution and its various facets is constitutionalism in practice. In this process, it promotes equality among the people, and there's a feeling of share and care among the people, among the majority and minority, among people belonging to different caste, class, religion, region, language, and the government. It encourages the ideas of liberty, equality, justice, and it promotes the dignity, self-respect of the individual. And it is done in a spirit of goodwill and cooperation, but the accountability of the government is always there. Accountability to the people, responsiveness to the needs of the people. So the constitution endeavors to restrict the government in some parameters so that the government works according to the will of the people, according to the mandate of the people. The Greek philosopher Aristotle encouraged the idea of constitutionalism. The Romans were very encouraging and very adaptive towards the idea of constitutionalism. They wanted the spirit of constitutionalism to be applied in full force. Christianity at a certain time went against papal authority. They did not want the authority of the church. They wanted universalism, equality, coupled with the spirit of fraternity. In Europe, for many centuries, the king and the church exploited the masses. The kings believed in the divine right of kings, that they have blue blood flowing in their veins, and they believed that nobody could criticize them. Now, to control the minds of the people, they wanted the help of the church. So the king would promise power, wealth, status to the church on the condition that on Sundays or in Mass, whenever the people would go to the church, the authorities of the church had to praise the king and tell the people not to criticize him and to accept him as the representative of God on earth. This continued for many years because the adjustment and accommodation between the king and the church benefited both of them. Now, with the coming of the Renaissance and the Reformation movements, there was a change. The common person became aware, the common populace became aware, alert. Education, spread of education, technology, the printing press, publishing of books, when a few people got educated and they would read out the events or a book, books like A Tale of Two Cities and all, something which told about their rights to a public. One person would be educated in a village and he would sit down with a book and he would have a hearing audience where people would listen to him every evening and wait for the next evening. So these kind of groups helped in making the people aware about their rights, and they wanted more political participation. They wanted that the government, it might be the king, it might be the government in any form, it should be accountable to them, it should be sensitive to their needs. So a new era started, which the king and the church tried to suppress. But once the things had been set in motion, there was no turning back. And this movement became stronger and stronger. And today we have the idea of constitutional, which is much accepted, much liked, and is established in many countries. Now, coming to Asia, we have the case of India, where constitutionalism is a big success. If we look around and look at our neighbors, it might be Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, Burma, Nepal, Sri Lanka. We will come across stories where for many years the constitution and the spirit of constitutionalism was put on the back burner, or where the constitution was there but it was not followed. India can boast of a very, very good record of adhering and running the country according to the constitution. We are a liberal democracy, and we've been successful because we have given the individual dignity, self-respect. We believe in giving liberty, equality, justice to each and every citizen of the country. It might be from the majority community or from the minority community. So India has adhered to all the principles of the constitution, all the dictates given to it by the constitution, and has applied the idea of constitutionalism in practice. What we can say about India, except the very small part but very horrible part about the emergency, which continued from 25th June 1975 to 21st March 1977, except that part, India can boast of adhering to the constitution. But this cannot be said about our neighbor Pakistan, in which we cannot see the civilian government playing its role as it should be. The military combined with the bureaucracy has always called the shots. We've had generals like General Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, General Zia, General Pervez Musharraf very recently, who hijacked the whole process of democracy. They were the ones who dictated, who took all the advantage of the political instability and ruled with their own whims and fancies. Elections have been held in Pakistan, of course, after a lot of pressure from America, but these dictators have violated all constitutional norms. Elections are held, but they are a farce, and they jokingly say in Pakistan that yes, free and fair elections are held in Pakistan, but at the time of counting, the hand of Allah is there, and we don't know what happens. So a very blatant violation of constitutional norms. We have the example of Nepal, our immediate neighbor, very friendly country with us. We have no visa problems. Our citizens and their citizens can just cross over the Indian boundary, but when it comes to the political system, Nepal does not boast of having such a neutral, impartial, and a stain-free political system. King Birendra surrendered all the powers to the parliament in 1990, and Nepal became a constitutional monarchy. But this process was vitiated in this century. In 2001, King Birendra was mercilessly killed, assassinated along with his own family by his own son, who was in a drunken state as reported by the media. Only King Gayendra, younger brother of King Birendra, was not there in that room. He and his family survived the massacre. King Gayendra took over the power in 2001, and he relegated the constitutional norms and showed an exit to the idea of democracy. He ruled with an iron hand till 2005, when he started repressing, when he dissolved the parliament and started ruling by his own dictate. The people did not take very kindly to it, and they came out on the streets. He repressed them, suppressed them violently, but the people were not to be cowed down. Ultimately, in April 2006, after 3 days of mass protests in which people just sat on the roads, all the parties came together to form the 7-party alliance. Even the Maoists joined them. The King Gayendra had to give all the powers to the parliament, to Girja Prasad Koirala, who became the Prime Minister and led the parties to power. So that was the sad end of King Gayendra, a befitting reply by the people to King Gayendra, who violated all constitutional norms and tried to wreck the constitutionalism and its spirit. The other states, countries around India also have had a very sorry past. We have the example of Sri Lanka, where the Sinhala Buddhists who were in majority, tried to suppress the Tamilians by making the Sinhalese an official language and making Buddhism the official language. The Tamilians organized themselves into many small bodies and retaliated violently. One of them was the LTTE, Liberation of Tamil Tigers Elam, headed by Prabhakaran. It led to a civil war between the government and the LTT for many, many decades. Thankfully, the election process and the constitution and the spirit of constitutionalism is back in practice in Sri Lanka. China defies any definition of constitutionalism. It is everything happens according to the constitution, but everything is handled by the Communist Party of China, which rules by its own definition, by its own rules and regulations. Myanmar or Burma, ruled by a set of generals who have kept the freedom of press away from its boundaries, who did not believe in giving any stamp of approval to any political party, and keeping the main opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi in house arrest for many years, separating her from her husband and her son, who were based in England. So this is the sorry state of affairs. This has been the sorry state of affairs in Asia the largest continent for a long time. Now, the causes of constitutionalism not having a firm footing in Asia are many. There are many reasons for it. First of all, we've all had a colonial past which has left its strain, its pressures on us, that we are not able to blossom as we would like to. The legacy of the colonial past is deep. It is deeply ingrained in us, and they have left us with some lacunas which we are not able to overcome. Poverty is one big stigma in the whole continent, because when there's poverty, the people don't take political participation very seriously. They sell their vote. They are not aware, or they do not have the time to be aware about what is happening in the political system. They don't play any role, a very active role in the political participation. And the most important thing is, all these countries have achieved their independence only in the last few decades. So the democratic institutions are not firmly entrenched in the political system of the countries. The democratic institutions still need a lot of time and a very healthy environment to work, and then only we can see the effects. And constitutionalism is an unfamiliar concept in our countries, where we have been divided for a very, very long time on petty issues like religion, caste, region, so on and so forth. There are many obstacles in the way of constitutionalism. Dynasty politics. There are about 28, 29 families which are running the whole of India, for example. You have the Abdullahs in Kashmir, the Badals in Punjab, the Gandhi family in Delhi, you have the Sindhyas, you have the pilots. There are just a few families which are running the whole show, which leads to a lot of hoarding of wealth, corruption, and these are the banes in the way of constitutionalism. We have selfish leaders. The leaders who got us our independence were a different class altogether. They fought for independence. They were the people who lived for politics. The present breed of politicians are living off politics. They are just there to mint money. It has become their vacation. The frustration among the people, and because of the unequal distribution of wealth, which is being taken care by the recent demonetization, are problems which do not let the spirit of constitutionalism permeate into every aspect of the political system. So these problems, if met, or if a solution is found to such problems, then the people will probably have more time, more faith to think about constitutionalism and see to it that it is practiced without any hindrance. So all these dictators who violated the spirit of constitutionalism, who paid no heed to the rule of law, and who ruled by the force, manipulation, violence, repression, ruled for a long time. And how could they rule for or be in power for such a long time? It was by force and coercion. We have the example of President Mabsogo of Equatorial Guinea, who stayed in power for 36 years and 279 days. We have the example of President Santos in Angola, who stayed in power for 36 years. We have the example of President Zhukov in Bulgaria, who ruled for 35 years and 258 days. How could you stay in power, brushing aside the constitution and the spirit of constitutionalism for such a long time? It is only when you suppress the voice of the people which is suppressing constitutionalism. And if 36 years or 35 years was not enough, we have the example of King Kim Il-sung of Korea, who ruled for 45 years. We have the example of Omar Bongo in Congo, who ruled for 41 years and 155 days. We have the example of Nasinge Erdema in Togo, who ruled for 37 years and 297 days. And then these leaders glorify themselves. Constitutionalism is further tainted when these leaders give themselves names to glorify themselves and make them immortal and create a fear psychosis in the minds of the people. So we have Kim II of South Korea, who calls himself the great leader. We have Kim Jong of South Korea, who called himself dear leader. We have Gaddafi, who called himself brotherly leader and guide of the revolution. And Turkmenistan, President Niyazov, called himself Turkmenbashi. The crux was that they were the ones to guide, and only they were the ones who could lead the citizens to a bright future, leave aside the constitution, leave aside the spirit of constitutionalism. So General Sani Abacha in Nigeria proved to be a dictator. President Assad in Syria was a totalitarian ruler who ran an authoritarian regime. President Nkurunziza of Burundi buried the constitutional norms deep from where they could never be retrieved. We can say, or we can summarize by saying that constitutional governments are still a mirage in the developing countries. We need the concept of pure democracy, not only in the constitution, but in practice on the soil of the country, on the land of the country. And for this, we need selfless leaders. We need leaders who will rise above their vested interests. And we need an end to dynasty rule. So we can conclude this lecture by having it in mind that we will have to put in sustained efforts to continue to usher in constitutional norms. The journey is tough, the journey is long, but we have to usher in the spirit of constitutionalism. Separation of powers is essential, and so is checks and balances as given by Montesquieu. We have to adhere to the spirit of constitutionalism and to understand the sanctity of a constitutional government and the need for constitutionalism in each and every country so that the individual can lead a life of dignity, self-respect, full of freedom, equality and justice. Thank you.